Okay. And we are live. Cool. So let's get started. I see a couple of agenda items. And let me also ping Gabe if he can make it so that we can also talk about the profile build pack. Okay. Pinged him, not sure if he'll be able to make it, but let's try. Cool. So let's go through the agenda. YouTube stream has started. I don't see any new faces. Status updates. Dan, do you want to give the status updates on the profile build pack and the libc and BPRs that you've been working on?
Sure. Yeah. Profile build pack. We basically have a template merged in. So the kind of the base for the build pack is there. All the just the core boilerplate stuff. I'm really looking forward to the template work in pack. By the way, after having done that, it was more of a pain than I had hoped. But we got CI wired up and things like that too. So we should really be ready to go. I think just kind of implement the business logic at this point. And then on the libcnb side, we caught a kind of edge case bug this week, and also there's a couple open issues I was hoping to talk about a little bit more later, but just as we drive forward to like RC and GA release for V2.
Cool, thank you. I'm gonna link those PRs, and maybe what we can do is tag the. I think the blocking PRs are tagged to the V2 milestone, so I'm just gonna link them here. The blocking issues. And next up we have RFCs, which I don't see any new RFCs for our team, and I think we've discussed the rest in the.
Is it worth tagging Nally's RFC as something for at least audience build pack out there?
Which one? The the stack one?
Yeah, the stack upgrade one.
Let me tag that. Okay. Anything else?
Nothing that's comes to my mind recently, but it seems like our discussion yesterday had large ramifications for build pack authors if we go one way or another.
I think this is the RFC that Terence is talking about, which proposes that if people rebuild an app image with a new builder that has a different stack ID, lifecycle should bust all the caches and like ignore any previous caches stored by the build packs. I think yesterday in the working group, the TLDR was maybe introduce a build pack normal level flag similar to clear-env, which is like preserve cache on stack updates or whatever the flag is. That would allow build packs to opt in to preserving the cache, even if the stack ID is changed, to allow for build packs like Go or Java that that may not care about the underlying base image and any changes to it, and can still utilize their cached artifacts. instead of just completely busting the cache for every build pack. I don't think that's the RFC has been updated yet with that. But most of the conversation was like to remove this cache so that build packs don't have to don't accidentally reuse artifacts that do not target a newer version of the stack or operating system. I think some interesting commentary in the working group was around how different build pack vendors handle it. So I think both Bloomberg and Paketo currently store stack ID or some version information in the metadata so they know when to bust the cache. But I think new build pack authors may not be aware of something like that. So they might not be they might not have accounted for something like this. So it's just to enable a safe option.
Does Bloomberg and Paketo leverage the clearenv thing as well? Or do you use the default?
Oh, we don't. We don't use clearenv. I don't know about Paketo.
I don't believe we are either.
Yeah. Anything to add?
No, I think that summarizes most of it. I guess if people from this group as representatives of people doing bill pack things, authoring things, if you have opinions, please comment on the RFC.
Cool. Any other RFC we want to discuss? Want to take that as a no. Next up is profile build pack. I see Gabe is also here, so I think did you put this agenda item, Daniel, or I don't know who put this.
I did. I added that. And it was just kind of a follow-up just to make sure that we're all on the same page about, what's happening next there and who's working on to push that forward.
Cool. I think we just need, should we start with some issues at least, or so that we know and we can discuss a few things before we start implementing the pull request. I know we had an informal discussion between me, Dan, Gabe, and Mikey, but maybe it's worth putting that in form of issues so that people can start picking it up. But I believe, Gabe, you were asking about the scaffolding. It's ready, so.
Yeah, yeah. If we can create issues and then assign work, that would be
Okay.
the best thing to do. That way we're not overriding each other, right? Like everyone knows what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. Dan, since you or Mikey were leading this work, do you want to do that?
Yeah, I can. I'll have to think about what chunks of work there are that could be, how things could be broken down. Yeah, I can try to add some issues in there.
I don't think it has to be super granular. An issue could be like implement the detect and build, and then I'm happy to have that assigned to me.
Okay.
Just so that what everyone just we're not overriding each other's work.
Sounds good.
Anything else to add? Sorry.
One other thing on that, as far as testing, what are what is everyone's thoughts on testing for that? Obviously, we'll write up a suite of unit tests to make sure that we're trying to cover the code the best we can. But as far as integration testing, do we want to try to add some stuff for that? It's not a standalone build pack, so to speak. So there would have to be other build packs part of that integration test as well, which is is a minor risk, I guess, or you have to mock up like test build packs or something to kind of flush out, a full build cycle.
Why would we need other build packs?
I think just to make the detection happen, or although maybe not.
It's user-based
Yeah.
profile, right?
Yeah.
It's like user app developer contributed profile is for the profile build pack, right? Unless I'm misremembering here.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that would be. There's nothing.
Yeah, I think you would just need like sample source repo with .profile and make sure it gets loaded right at runtime.
So maybe that's the set of issues, like detect plus testing, build plus testing, and a separate ticket for integration tests.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Cool. Anything else?
Do we want to depend on sorry, my mind is blanking. The library name.
Occam?
Yeah. Do we want to use Occam for the testing?
I think that's pretty much the only option for pack testing right now, like being able to use pack for tests in Go.
Yeah, it's short of re-implementing a lot of what it does. Yeah. Okay. I'll mention that in the note issue for that one.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, are we gonna use the V2 libcmv in this thing? Okay.
I think that
It
might
is
already.
It is wired up in there. Yeah. You might need to bump that, or kind of keep on. We might need to be kind of proactive about bumping that and keeping it up to date. Just because it is kind of a moving target until we do cut a release. But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
Also want to mention that. Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay. Lib CNB V2 progress. I think that's you as well, Daniel.
Yeah. So there's three issues that are I think more or less ready to go. I think we're just kind of trying to agree on the last little bits of details. The extract method for generating config, I redid some of those things. So folks could take another look at that. I changed it so it doesn't break the function signatures. So I think it should be a little bit less contentious now, and hopefully that will be ready to go. The formatters out of the main package is probably going to need to be rebased at least, and maybe touched up a little after that if that config change goes through, because there's some conflicting stuff there, I'm sure. But the general ideas of it are just kind of restructuring things to make the code base a little more flexible in terms of the way the output can be. The SBOM formatter, I'll let Forrest talk to that. I haven't I've looked at it, but it's been too long, and I don't want to don't want to say something wrong about it. Oh, I don't see Forrest on anymore. Looks like he dropped
Oh.
off.
Okay.
But yeah, so that one's another one. I think we had some outstanding questions, but the what's the right? The general idea of it seemed like everyone liked it. So again, I
Yeah,
think just getting it across the finish line.
I think the only questions I had was like whether we want to keep this the old one as well or just this one. Because I think right now this removes the old interface, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I remember wondering about that as well.
Because
Okay.
the only thing was like, let's say you're just executing like a CLI, which accepts the output flag, it makes very little sense to me to like stream that to uh, like a buffer and then write it using Go. That was the only thing I had, because like sometimes the CLI might output like the SBOM just on disk, or it might output other like logs or something on standard out. So then the end user has to worry about cleaning the standard out and then using the writer to write it. I think that was like the only point of contention here.
Okay. I'll follow up with Forrest and
Yeah.
see if we can get that addressed. And like I said, I think I'm just trying to see what we can do to push whatever still remains across the finish line.
I think there are a few other issues here which are tag 2.0. So like there are some things that are like, I think our structs are too open at times, because I saw like a few PRs trying to override the execd path in places, which ideally they never should. libcnv should construct those, like it constructs those paths and puts them in the struct, and those should all be like ideally private fields in the struct that are accessible through some function that gives a read-only copy of it. So these were like the only weird quirks that I found in libcnv that we should probably fix.
Okay.
Like we should not like make fields that are set by libcnv public writable, because that might mean that users end up overwriting that field and setting it to incorrect values, and then in the future if we change the API, then the paths changes and they're still using the old paths, they might see some issues. So like that was probably the only thing. This one I think is I think this one was put by you, and this was similar to the life cycle patch we put in, if you remember, where you can add additional version qualifiers. So I think this is something we should also do for 2.0. And I think this was probably the last one. And I think we added reset, right? Reset.
I know that came up. Did that get merged?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that's helpful.
And there was this open question I had in the PR itself, which is like, do we want to load other things apart from environment variables, which it currently doesn't in layers.layer.
Do you want to spin off a specific issue for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is captured here. So like I generally wanted to replicate some of the common APIs that I had put here as an example back into libcnv for Go. So it has a couple other methods, which is like being able to compare layer metadata and reset only if they differ and things like that. But I can add a few more concrete examples here of where they're used.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be helpful if you could add some more detail on that. And the first issue as well with the struct visibility.
Yeah.
I agree with both. I could probably find some time to do stuff, but it's harder to have to dig through the code base and hunt for the stuff. So if you have examples of it,
I
we can make
think
that happen.
one other thing that you brought up, which I think is also going to affect us as we move to libcnb v2, is like how to test the layer creation logic. So previously libcnb had this concept of contributors, and you could test individual layer contributors without having to test the entire build logic. And with the new API, I think that's missing, right?
I think instead of testing the layer contributor, you'd be testing your build and detect func, that your implementation of that.
Yep.
It's probably not too far off. I have not tried converting one of our build packs yet. So yeah, that's something I'd like to do before, we cut a libcnb v2 as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to see like the ergonomics of that. But I feel like it shouldn't be too bad. That'd be another one Forrest could maybe chime in on a little bit, because I know in Packet they're using that function-based approach, so he might be able to like give an example of how they test that, what the common test workflow looks like.
Yep. I think that's pretty much it. I think once these are done and the pull requests are merged, I think we should be good to go. We can cut a RC.
I had a question on one of those issues that's open. If you click back, the 130 standardize the logging interface. Is that still something that you're looking in? We did make some changes around logging. But is that something that you still want to explore?
What I would have liked is if this was not on by default, but like if we had an adapter to a logger interface where we could plug something that follows this interface into the CNB, that would have been nice. Because like if we could, when we are logging things, if we could add context variables on like what it's logging and so on. So what I was imagining was like, given a logger-like interface, if you could take that and automatically generate the debug writer and like the libcnb logging interface essentially. Does that make sense? It doesn't. I don't think that's blocking v2. This is something we can add on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It sounds like we could, because we have our interface, so it sounds like we could write something that uses one of those libraries to meet our interface.
Yep. And I think this one, Aiden, should I assign this to you?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I think you've sort of been working on this. Maybe if you can. Okay, I can't assign you until you comment. So
it's issue number 50.
But I believe you have some examples for and docs for this, right?
Not for libcmb v2, but
I think it does not change too dramatically, at least in terms of detect and the build context and the inputs to the API itself.
I should be able to reuse a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Just for so others have a better context. We've written some internal documents to explain how we use libcmb internally, and I should be able to get approval to adapt some of those for external usage.
Cool. I think it'd still be worth, like if you have them for V1, it'd still be great to get that published. And then that also gives us a basis for like a migration guide, you know, to V2, which is going to be something we're definitely going to need.
Cool. Yeah, I'll see how much of this I can pull externally.
Yeah, I don't think, as far as I remember, we didn't put anything internal in there, so
No.
I'd be able to just copy paste the whole thing.
I'll have a look.
I think that's the end of our agenda.
Apart from wishing everyone a happy Friday.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So I'm gonna give everyone half an hour back.